That's a good start, Dave. Hello, good evening, and welcome. Apologies to those on YouTube who just
Yeah.
saw the back of Dave's eyes there. Welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Rutledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all the action. I'm blaming Mike Brisker for the Monday night version of this.
I
Would
don't think
Mike?
I'm intelligent enough with no, I need to be, yeah. I'll pay more attention to image.
Right, let's get started on Friday night, where London Lions beat the Sheffield Sharks 92-68. That's actually London's biggest ever league win over Sheffield. Taylor was back, Flood was not. Sheffield had signed Donovan Clay, but I think he just arrived that day, so he didn't play. Groves didn't play. Chapman too early fouls. There was something weird about this game, Dave. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but it felt I was dual screening. This one felt more like the dead rubber than the league game, and the other
Yeah.
one felt more like the league game.
I mean, well, yeah, first thing, obviously, welcome to Donovan. I mean, with feet of clay, he shouldn't travel much, should he?
Oh dear, it's the
Yeah,
beginning of the puns there.
it is. It's awful. Sorry, Donovan. Um, well, the most interesting thing about this was basically seeing how London were going to approach the regular season in relation to their rotations, which have been anything but fixed so far, as the coach has been messing around trying to figure out who he can play and who he should play them with. And they kind of settled in with an interesting group because obviously Rye's been out. But in this game, they started Taylor and Briscoe, who are obviously going to be their first choice backcourt. I don't think there's much dispute about that. But then Rye and Adebayo with Hadzibegovic in the middle. So effectively they're kind of a little bit smaller than they have been, but they've got size to come off the bench. And the really interesting thing is obviously starts Adebayo because Adebayo was probably not a guy he was going to start probably 6 weeks ago.
Mm.
And he starts him to give um, him the ability to guard the opposition's most dangerous player or
Yeah,
most impactful player because he's really impressed as a defensive force.
he has. Yeah.
Um, and he's earned himself a starting spot. So it just goes to show it's not all about, putting the ball in the basket and doing fancy things and yelling at the moon. If you do your job, then the coach is well respected as Bozic is going to reward you for that. And it also changes the dynamic of them because technically he's playing the four spot. Adebayo is, even though he can guard anything he wants, and they have this advantage with Rye being 6'6", 6'7", who's basically a positionless player as well. So seeing that, and then kind of the counterpunch to that, which was to bring both Delaire, who started every game,
Mm.
and Soko off the bench. And the way they play with Delaire and Soko is that Delaire plays as kind of the four-man, even though he's 6'10", plays in the wing, and Soko plays in the middle at 6'8". And then they have the other guys who can come off. The Goodwin played a little bit, Sandy played a little bit, etc. Um, but fundamentally, that was his primary seven man rotation, and I thought that was it was intriguing to see how he was going to fit. Hadzibegovic, Dallaire, Soko, Rai, all of those guys together. Um,
It was actually the first quarter was pretty close. It was actually the
yeah,
second quarter when Sheffield went small, and
mm,
and London had I think Jamal was at the five and Rotino at the four, and then Lions had Hadzibegovic, Delaire, and Rye on the court, and they actually had a 13-2 run as a result of that to lead
yeah. I
40
mean,
to
well,
30.
Atiba does this thing. It's pretty rare amongst coaches whereby if you get a foul in the first couple of minutes, you kind of come out.
Mm.
He likes to protect them from the second foul. Sometimes it works, sometimes it can kind of impact the player's rhythm a little bit and they don't get into it. Um, and I think in this game, I think, that happened at the 7.5 minute mark in the first quarter. I
Mm.
remember thinking, whoa, they're really sold on this small. Now, obviously, I don't think Groves was playing.
No, he wasn't. No.
So that's a lot of size. That's size that they miss and a perimeter size that they miss. And Ocherobe didn't play yesterday, so one assumes that he's not exactly um, fully fit, and then you have Clay who wasn't there, so he doesn't really have that much in the way of options either.
No, no.
Um, to go in that small. But the difficulty is that there's some big bodies at London, and Jordan Taylor is one of the better defensive guards out there. Because he's always in the right place, and kind of eventually their scoring slowed up because Um, the lanes that Chapman's maybe been getting to the basket and Nixon's been getting to the basket against the northern teams who probably aren't as big as that in various positions weren't there.
Mm.
And then you were looking, well, who was going to score the ball for Sheffield, and it kind of became a little bit one-on-one stuff because and obviously they really struggled to get anything in the way of offensive rebounding.
First 3 minutes of the third quarter, Retino got his fourth foul. I watched this one because I had it on dual screen. I ended up watching this back a second time because I couldn't get my head around the game first time.
Mhm.
And actually, because I was watching it on Synergy, I just clicked on the fouls to see what the four fouls were because I couldn't remember them all in real time. And actually, they were all sort of transition, semi-transition mismatches, slightly soft, but they were all basically the same sort of foul. Anderson then got injured and landed awkwardly. It looked like a rolled ankle to me. And then
Yeah.
Chapman got his third foul and subbed out. And in many ways, that sort of 3 minutes at the start of the half sort of ended their chances.
Yeah, and you just kind of got the impression that London were playing with, I don't want to be generic, but they were playing with a little bit of wind under their sails. This is the first game. This was their season beginner.
Mm,
They were very active and they had a massive athleticism advantage. And in, Rye in particular, he's a cheat code. He didn't play particularly well in this game. I don't think he's fully back to top fitness. But he just has the ability to create stuff and to be so flexible for his coach. He gives his coach so many options.
mm,
I would have liked, and Dallaire, to be fair, Dallaire is, he started off a little bit, wondered where his head was, but he came off the bench and he scores the ball quite efficiently. Um, and with that 6'10" size and the putbacks and all of that stuff, they're going to be a problem for some teams.
mm,
And yeah, and Sheffield just really never kind of got out of first gear. And obviously, as I say, missing Groves, then missing Anderson. It is tough against that group. I think London's going to be tough.
mm. Lions eventually had a 9-2 run late in the third quarter that had them up 17, and that was basically
Yeah,
that.
they're kind of a running team, Sheffield. The way they're built now with Chapman and Nixon and Ratinho, who's up and down the court, and Matthews coming off the bench, and even, Groves and Anderson, they want to get up and down and run. Problem is, you got to get a rebound.
Mhm.
You've
Yeah.
got to force a miss, you've got to get a defensive rebound to be able to do that. And I thought London put a lot of pressure on them inside the whole game.
Mm. Hadzibegovic, 15.7 of 10 shooting, 7 rebounds. Rye, 6 of 8 shooting,
Mm.
14.7 rebounds, 7 assists. Brisker, 14 points and 5 assists. They were 53% field goal shooting, 50% from 3-point range, and 58 points in the paint.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think teams are going to have to game plan it. I mean, the 58 points in the paint is not all big guys, obviously, his layups as well, but that's a pretty scary number against
mm,
London.
mm,
I think teams are really going to have to game plan for Adebayo and maybe help off him a lot and Sandy and really make those other guys try and make those other guys beat them.
mm. It's a
There are some
particularly
flaws in
scary
that
number
London
when you
roster.
only it's a particularly scary number when you only score 68 as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chapman 17 and 5 assists, Jeffries 14, Matthews 12, 37% field goal shooting and 8 of 25 from 3. Let's were you going to come in with something
Just to
else
say
there?
that, it's probably the first time in the copper box for quite a few of those guys, and it's not the easiest place to shoot.
Mm,
I
yeah,
always found that. I always
yeah,
found that.
yeah. Let's go to Newcastle. Newcastle Eagles 77, Manchester Basketball 89. A win for basketball. Woohoo.
Yeah.
Candy starting, no Defoe. Josh Ward Hibbert didn't play. Maduk was back from Manchester, no KO though. Moore, I understand, was endearing himself to the home fans. You in particular, Dave, as he and
Well,
DJ
here we
Mitchell
go.
helped them out to a 21-7 lead after 6 minutes.
Firstly, it was quite interesting that obviously Candy got to play around Halloween, wasn't it?
Yes.
And then you've got obviously KO's out, not
Mm.
because of disqualification, because obviously that would be kind of technical KO. Um, but
Keep
yeah,
going. He's there all week.
Isaiah Moore,
Yeah.
where do I start? Well, firstly, the game itself, obviously, it's a game with nothing on for Newcastle, nothing on for Manchester. Ward Hibbert didn't play for Newcastle. Defoe was injured. Ward Hibbert was obviously held out to
Mm,
protect them, I'm assuming. Defoe's injured, and um,
Neighbours out as well.
Neighbours out, and Bynum's only just got there. So
Mm.
so Candy started. And actually, that's we should talk about him a little bit as well
Mm.
because they're your first proper game, effectively meaningful
Mm.
minutes since started with 28 minutes, 12.3 rebounds against a team like Manchester is
Career
really
best 12
impressive.
points as well.
So again,
That's his career best as well. His
career
his
best, yeah. I
previous
mean,
high was 11 in NBL.
yeah, so he scored the ball. He shot the ball with confidence, which is good. And he didn't look out of place, which is the biggest thing. It's always about, can you score the ball first, then you get the confidence to not look out of place. So that was a really positive thing. And I think Stuart knows now he can get a few minutes out of him when he needs them, which is, might be important down the line, given the amount of games they've got to play. Um, yeah, and Manchester, yeah, wow. The talented bunch
Mm.
really remind me of Newcastle last year at this point in time, probably with more talent, more size. Um, Mitchell, really impressive,
Mm.
really impressive. Just his kind of stature on the court,
Mm.
his court presence. That's probably the
Mm.
phrase you would use. And you don't know if someone's got it or not until you see someone who's got it.
Mm.
He kind of got it. He could get the ball where he wanted. He knew what shots he wanted to shoot, whether they went in or not. Um, so he really impressive. Ashton Langford, I think, will help them out big time
Mm.
because he looks like um, the guy who's suited to running that team, and as he gets more control of it, he'll help it. He'll help them a lot. Um, Isaiah, well, the first thing I did when I went back home was check on his college career.
Mm.
5 years, 5 universities.
Mm.
Um, Most games he's ever played for anybody, I think 26, 27 games.
Mm.
And one can understand how he might wear out his welcome.
Mm.
Um, a significant vertical threat, probably the best vertical threat we've had in the league since probably Kyler Kelly.
Mm.
Probably a little bit actually more regular a threat than Kyler Kelly, if I can put it that way.
Mm.
Kyler got a few, but he didn't get as many as Isaiah is getting. Um, but an individual who I don't think knows how to stay out of his own way. I think that's going to be his problem. I thought I thought the refs ref this game like it was a game which had nothing on it, and that's a dangerous way of reffing a game with professional basketball teams. I thought they were late on a number of calls. Not necessarily wrong, but late. I thought they, at times not focused on some of the stuff. Some of the stuff. I mean, Moore, at least after two of those dunks, there were potential taunting technicals which he didn't get.
Mm.
There was a bump. There was jawing. And I just thought to myself, they're not taking control of this. And I thought this before all the stuff went. I'm not bothered about the stuff at the end, but just the way they weren't taking control of the game. And I mean, there was one call where, Ashton Langford flies out of bounds on the baseline and having stolen the ball off Long. And one of the refs is walking back to halfway as if it's Manchester's ball. And there's no one within 10 feet of Ashton Langford.
Mm.
He's literally holding the ball over the basket, over the sideline. And you see, and Stuttle is going like, what's going on? Just literally. Well, so you got that impression whereby it was, there was a that oh, there's nothing on this game, fellas. Let's just get
Mm.
through it. And it
Mm.
doesn't work like that, unfortunately. So yeah, so Moore and Mitchell in particular, shot the ball really. Mitchell in particular shot the ball really well early on. Stuart was furious with Alan Aikens a couple of times for not basically defending him like he's a proper shooter. And and Newcastle, yeah, they were a bit off early, and it took them to get their pride, I think kicked a little bit to get down 19 before they really kicked into playing the way that they have been playing for much of the season in relation to their defense. The
Yeah,
defense was
as you say, it was an 18-point lead. They had a 10-0 run to get it back to 34 um, to 40. I kind of want to get to the end before
yeah,
we do get to the end. Bynum limped out with 8:30 to go in the fourth quarter. That was a bit of a weird one because he sort of collided with Candy, but they were both Candy had thrown a lovely pass inside, and they were both kind of looking at the
yeah.
pass and didn't see each other. And
I think it was a cry. He was just cramped, so I don't think there's much to that. Hopefully, uh,
uh,
anyway,
Manchester stayed in front until Alan Aikens with 6 points helped tie the scores at 70-70. And there's 5 to go. And as I say, this game felt more like the league game. It sort of drawing my eye a little more. Should we get to the entertainment at the end?
Yeah, they're fun and
Get
games at
to
the end. Yeah, absolutely.
so
Yeah, go
so
on.
Manchester are up 80 to 77 with 1:15 to go after Alan Ikens misses a free throw. Mitchell rebounds it. He slowly walks up court, passes the ball over the line to Ashton Langford. Now I've gone back. I went back on Synergy to watch this play again, and that gives me the ability to have a better understanding of timing than scrolling through design. And what you can't see the shot clock
No.
on visual on the camera at the point at which the ball is advanced into the front court. So we've only got the on-screen clock to see
That's
what
the point at which it's just so everyone's clear. That's the point at which it's controlled in the front court,
yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
I'll
Not that.
get to that. I'll get to that bit in a minute, Dave.
Okay, my
Um,
bad.
so as he catches the ball, Ashton Langford, it says 16 seconds
On
on
the
the
TV
visual
clock.
clock on the scoreboard on the screen.
Yeah.
And remember, Newcastle is a
15
15.9
seconds.
shot clock, so it's not an
Okay.
8 second violation until you see 15 on the clock. So I rocked and rolled it backwards and forwards, and there would have when the clock was in view, I went back, and there would appear to be about a half a second to zero point 0.7 of a second difference between the clocks on the basket and the on-screen clock
Oh,
changing.
yeah.
Somewhere around that. It's hard to tell because actually on one of the seconds when you slow it down, the clock on the side of the basket changes before the clock on the top of the basket. But on the
Right.
next second, they change at the same time. So I'm not quite
Right.
sure how that works. Um, so anyway, between Ashton Langford touching the ball and the on-screen clock turning to 15 is about zero point 0.3 seconds. So that would imply he caught the ball after the 16-second mark. But to the point that you just made, Dave, the rule on an 8 second violation is 28.1.2 for those who like this sort of thing. The team has caused the ball to go into the front court whenever the ball, not in control of any player, touches the front
Right.
court. And Ashton
Right.
Lang,
Bounce it.
the pass to Ashton Langford was a bounce pass. So
That's
it's actually the bounce that is the
I
point at
got you.
which the ball's in the front,
Interesting.
established in the front court in that situation. Now, again, I rocked and rolled this, and this is about zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.6
6. So it's, but I
before
mean,
the visual. So it's almost impossible to tell. It's going to be within a tenth one way or the
in
other.
in the gym, and I'm at the far end, so it's coming towards me. You know, you get a spidey sense when someone's not
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
spotting the
yeah, yeah,
clock. You do it all the time. It's going to be an
yeah,
8 second clock. It's going to be. I
yeah,
had that spidey sense, so
yeah.
it got to about 20, and I'm thinking they don't know this, you know,
Hmm.
because it wasn't the point guard on the ball. They were thinking about not fouling. And in the gym, it looked. I won't go further than say it looked very close.
Hmm.
You know, which it clearly was very
And I think it's within zero point 0.1 of a second
Yeah,
either
we
way.
were very close, you know, and whatever. And what then happened was they made a pass to the wing. Newcastle trapped it
So
fine.
so so
And
the thing to be the other thing to add is obviously the referee whose normal job it is to see the shot clock and whether the ball gets
yeah,
over the line in time. Actually, because of the way Newcastle were defending, there was a double on the ball, and then there was
yeah,
somebody chasing the receiver of the pass. So there are two potential foul points in that. One on the
yeah.
pass and one on the reception. So the chances of that referee being able to see the shot clock and all of that going on are pretty limited, I would say.
I think you're being
Now,
generous because I'm not sure that referee was even thinking about the shot clock, and that was my
well,
major problem.
that may or may not be true, but
True.
you've got to be looking for the foul, I think, in that situation.
Well, the reason I say that is the reason I say that is because I haven't watched it back. She doesn't look. I
Mm,
mean, you know, as I say, it's about the spidey sense, the
mm,
tingling. You know, hang on, this kid's getting. I need to do that. I need to be
mm,
a step further back so I can see the foul and I can see the shot clock and be aware of that at that time in the game. And I don't think that's. And I think that's what I'm talking about when I think that the refs were off all night. I don't think they were totally locked into it. You know, that wasn't there, and you actually, you know, there's no recognition of it. And
So it all matters just to for anybody who's not actually seen it, going, what are you banging on about this eight
yeah,
second violation
yeah,
for? This all matters because once Ashton Langford's got the ball, there are now three Eagles behind him.
Yeah.
The two who were double teaming the pass and the one who was trying
Get the steal.
to chase him round. So it's actually 4-on-2. Ali is open in the corner as a result, makes a three. Mark Stugler goes apoplectic because he thought it was an 8-second violation. He
Yeah.
gets two technicals and is tossed the game. Manchester make both free throws and it's 77-85
That was
with
the game.
103
Yeah.
and the game is over.
And let's be clear, the ejection was absolutely right because
Mm,
Mark did go crackers.
mm,
But it was interesting. I was in the gym. I mean, you only saw clips from the TV, but in the
mm,
gym, I'm watching him the whole time. And the phrase what he actually said, and this is the phrase that what he shouted was, "This is, apologies, kids, for anybody under 40 who listens to this. I know there's not many of you. Said, this is simple shit."
yeah,
That's what he says.
yeah, yeah.
He was talking about the fact that whether there was a call, well, he wanted the call, obviously, 8 seconds is essential.
Mm,
But what I'm quite sure, and this is some of the things that had happened earlier on in the game as well, lead up to that. But my read of it is that was an annoyance at the standard, at the failure to be aware of what was going on,
mm,
as opposed to the fact that they didn't get the call. Anyway, it's actually interesting watching Stuart because he generally gets more. You've seen it a couple of times where you've had him on the face on,
mm,
like that, where you've had that before. And he generally gets more wound up um, with the incompetent moments
mm,
than he does with the than he does with the calls which are potentially his or potentially against him, if you know what I mean.
mm,
So that's what winds him up more is when he's kind of shaking his head, thinking, "How can they not get that right? How can they not see that? Why is he walking down that way when he's carried the ball out of bounds?" That type of thing. And in this game, it kind of worked. It kind of worked for him because someone said to me on Twitter afterwards, "Oh, not great getting thrown out of a game like that." And my response was, "The best game I get thrown out of.
mm,
One, the game's been decided before you've been thrown out. Two, you're sticking up for your players,
mm,
which is a big thing down the line because the players know that you're going to fight for them. Three, you're not going to have any consequences, uh,
mm,
and um, and four, you get to make a wider point about whatever, about refereeing or whatever. So if you're going to get thrown out of a game, I mean, I left it to 2 seconds before I got thrown out of the game, and I got thrown out. You know, 2 seconds to go. At that point, I was pretty sure we weren't going to win. But but in that way, it's actually the best way of getting out. I don't. One doesn't condone getting thrown out of a game,
mm.
but it's part of the game.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
this is what people in outside basketball
There
don't
are we
necessarily understand.
yeah, we both know coaches who've used it as a tactic.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
if I ever
yeah.
got thrown out of a game last year, Bozic did it twice, I think. And it's them making a point,
Mm,
right? Now, it might be a good point and it might be a bad point. Um, but for newbies to this, it doesn't have the same cash as ascending up in football, for instance.
mm,
It's not the same. It's into the psychology of it is entirely different. So anyway, as he's walking off, our best friend, Mr. Moore,
mm,
which you couldn't see on the TV,
mm,
is standing on the halfway line, having already attempted to pick a fight with two of the Eagles, I think, or at least talk to them, waving Stootle off,
mm,
right? With our, which my reckoning should be his third taunting technical of the game, because I don't understand how you can get away with that if you're in the middle of the court. I just
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know how
yeah.
a ref can look at that and say that's all right by me. And therefore at that point the whole crowd is, he's absolute villain number one. And
Yeah.
I'll be blunt, I don't think he's a bad dude at all.
No, no,
I
no.
really don't. I like the way he plays, and I like the energy he plays with, and the skill set he has is certainly is high level. But this is a game in a competition you've already been knocked out of,
Mm,
right? Your job is to get in there, win the game, and get out,
mm.
and not create anything. I mean, certainly not to kind of create a kind of a battle scene
Yeah, yeah.
against a team that's already
Because actually,
qualified.
I mean, the rest of us on the outside looking in find it amusing, but
Yeah,
there is that element of the whole Leicester Newcastle thing last year where all
yeah.
of that kicked off, and then it's like what happens in the next game, and
Yeah.
and these things can have consequences in the future.
Well, they can, but it's more from my perspective. Even that, I don't think IZM was thinking more than 20 minutes in the future. I'll be honest.
No.
Bless him. I don't mean that to patronize me. I just think that's the way he's wired. Um, I think it's more a window into his soul, a window into his mentality, and unfortunately, it's him showing a weakness. Right? That's a weakness, what he did in that game. Okay, because it's not the game to do it in, it's not the time to do it. If you win the championship, I don't care. You can do what you want. You win the cup final, do what you want,
Mm,
celebrate as much as you want. You've earned it. Okay, your team is 2-5. You're playing in a meaningless game.
mm,
Okay, the last thing you need to be doing is interacting with opposition coaches as they're being thrown out of a game. I mean, that is not smart in any way, shape, or form. And the reason we know it's not smart is because no one else ever does it. Every
mm,
player knows. So I'm not just making this up because it's Isaiah Moore, because it's Manchester Giant, not Newcastle Eagle or anybody else. If a coach is throwing out the game, if you're a player, you just stand by and watch. It's nothing to do with you. You might have done your job, but the last thing you're going to do is make a massive fuss out of it. So he is not yet a targeted man. I'm not by the refs. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's going to be long before he is. I'll be blunt. He should have got a technical on the Sunday game when he banged the backboard,
mm.
and the refs ignored that one
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well. And he's got two ways. I mean, either if he wants to make a career for himself at a high level, and he should be a high level career, he has to prove he can stick around. He has to prove that coaches can trust him.
mm,
He doesn't have to prove anything about his talent or his athleticism. That's all there. With him, it's like Taj Green times five. It's all mental.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So, I hope he manages it.
Mm,
But it doesn't bode particularly well. Five colleges in 5 years.
mm,
It tends to suggest you wear out your welcome. So the interactions within that team will be interesting. But Manchester, I'll say, I thought Mitchell was excellent. Ashton Langford was excellent. Newcastle were pretty good actually, for what they had, given that Lord Hibbert's been their leader, and he wasn't playing, and obviously Defoe's out for a while, and he wasn't playing, and had a new point guard playing a bit. I thought they really stuck at it, and they showed a bit of pride, and they could, and that there was nothing on the game. So overall, it was a fun. I put on Twitter after, it was a fun night
it
out.
was a
It was,
fun
it really
game.
was. It was
As I
back to the old
say,
days, Jason Fogarty,
yeah,
and then Sunderland
yeah,
and Croatia Leisure Centre in Sunderland, and everybody loves a villain. I get
yeah,
that,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and if be it the refs or be it the opposition or whatever, it does make for a good night out, and in that
yeah,
gym, it makes for a really good night out.
yeah,
Um, because not a lot of the fans know everything about what's going on in the court,
yeah,
but we can all see someone acting like a
yeah.
dick. You know what I
We
mean?
all know who to boo.
Yeah, exactly. You all know who to boo. Yeah, exactly. So it kind of creates a bit of unanimity amongst the home support, which was fun.
Yeah. So that was basically the game as well after all of that. So Knight 17, Alan Ikens 13, Candy, as we said, career best 12. Mitchell 22 and 12. And at halftime, I was looking up how many players had hit 6 of 9 or hit 6 3-pointers in 3 consecutive games because he was on pace for that.
Yeah.
And he actually drifted away from it as the game went on, which was very frustrating when you spent 15 minutes looking up a stat and can't
Well,
use
it
it.
was 7 of 19 in the game, but it felt worse from Newcastle's
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
just felt like we made a play when they needed to make a play. How they all click together is going to be massive for that team. Because obviously the talent is there, the length is there, the size is there. Um, KO didn't play in this game, so there was some minutes which were redistributed. You worry that someone might miss out. I don't know if it's going to be Ali. Carey's obviously probably not going to play as much. Um, John and Lewis, how's that going to go? Are they both going to come off the bench? That type of thing. Um, so they're the team that if that team works out that there's only one ball
Mm.
and shares the ball the way that it could, they're going to be really, really dangerous.
Did I give all the Manchester scorers? I
I think you
didn't.
did, yeah. You said
Did
Mitchell
I?
22 and 12, didn't you?
Yeah, Moore 22 and 9, and Ashton Langford 11 and 6 assists. Your mate Chapman, by the way, was one of the people in the list. There were only a few of them. I think
Joe made 6 threes in a row. Yeah,
in
yeah, I can imagine
six
that.
three 3 games in a row, and I think
Yeah,
Ryan Patton was the
yeah, it wouldn't
last
surprise
one.
me.
I think it was somebody at Worcester as well. I think I can't remember.
Tommy Freeman,
No, it wasn't Tommy Freeman. No, maybe it wasn't a Worcester player. I can't remember.
James Life,
No, I don't think it was. That would have been before, so I don't
2007.
think it
No.
would be. Yeah.
Oh well, yeah. Well, that season with Chapman and Patton, there were some threes flying around.
Mm.
Lots of shots going up.
So let's go to Saturday. Surrey 89 is 66. Leicester Riders 82. No Bowman through illness. Connor Washington becoming Leicester's all-time leader in league games played, 304th game played for Leicester. So he's played, I worked it out, 20% of their league games since 1972.
22. Oh, there you go. That's pretty impressive.
Uh,
Congratulations, Connor.
yeah. Uh, First quarter, well, basically the first half, I was about to say first quarter was Gooden against Leicester. He had 13 points in the first quarter, 4 or 5 from three. He had 16 points before he sat down for the first time in the second quarter, 12 and a half minutes in, and it was 24 points apiece at that point.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd have set him down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm going to say this is actually there's a train with this because the Surrey Leicester game and the subsequent Caledonia Newcastle game that we'll talk about later, very, very similar situations. Both teams had already won 2 games against the other. The road team had won 2 games against the home team. And it's the first game of the season effectively in the league. And you expect a reaction.
Mm.
Right? In neither game did the home team give any sort of reaction to what you would have expected. Right? You should not, as a pro, be getting beat by the same team 3 times in the first 6 weeks of a season that comfortably on your own floor.
Mm.
Right? That just should not be happening. There should be something there. I think Cameron and the rest of the team owes Cameron Gooden a considerable drink or two, to be honest, because without him, they would have been embarrassed on the home floor.
Mm.
And I was trying to work out whether it was Leicester's defense or whether it was Leicester's defense was that good, but they couldn't stop Gooden scoring.
Mm.
So my implication is that the rest of the Surrey guys, and these weren't bad shots Cameron Gooden was shooting, he wasn't chucking up anything from anywhere. That the rest of the Surrey guys just weren't ready to play. They didn't finish. Now the first defensive play of the game, right? For Surrey, you had a flat pass to Abercrombie at the top of the key, nailed a 3 from the left kind of wing top of the key, right? James immediately looked up at Lloyd Gardner and went, "My bad," okay, because he played, he helped off on the pass, helped off on the drive to the middle, and he kicked Abercrombie. I'm like, you can't be saying my bad to your coach on the first play of the game. You can't be ready for the game if you know that's all you've taught about. This is your matchup. He doesn't get set shot, catch and shoot threes. You don't overhelp off him. The very first play, the player he's putting us out saying, Michael. Now, if I'm Lloyd at that point, I'm thinking, oh, crying out loud, where do I go here? Because I need this guy. This guy scored had 17 points last time we played him in the first half.
Mm.
Right? But it talks as to his mental connection to the game, and it's not. He's not the only one. I'm not picking on him. It's something I saw at Newcastle all last year. Just don't my bad me, just do it right.
Mm. Yeah.
And that kind of kicked into their offense because other than the first, the crazy thing was, you say Cameron Gooden had 20 of the first 31. Well, the Delican had the first 4
Mm.
on 2 pick and rolls.
Yeah.
To the rim. And so that's Cameron Gooden with 20 of the next 27 points or something like that.
Yeah.
And nobody else, I mean, if Jalen Ray, he played like he was going through a bad breakup with his girlfriend. I'm sorry, that was just, you just, I'm taking the piss a bit there. I have no
Yeah.
idea about that. But
Yeah.
Jalen Ray is a high level scorer,
Mm.
right? Absolutely high level scorer. I've seen him, we haven't seen it so much in actually in the season because he was injured last time. But I've seen him a couple of preseason games up here, actually 3 or 4 preseason games up here, and he can flat out score.
Mm.
Any which way. He was turning down shots, he was falling on the ground, he was missing badly, he wasn't certain about the shots he was shooting. Leicester were guarding him properly. But they weren't guarding with a defensive stopper. Ethan Wright's not a stopper. Ethan Wright's a really solid defender. But he's not a defensive stopper. And Surrey cannot win with nothing out of Ray and James.
Well, they got nothing. They got nothing out of anybody. That halftime, Gooden had
Yeah,
24 points, shooting 8 for 11. The rest of the team had 11 points, shooting 4 for 21.
4 for 21.
Yeah,
I mean, 2 of them were the first 2 plays of the game with
yeah,
Delican.
yeah.
There's 2 for 19.
Mm.
Your pro is somebody. What does you got to be able to score the ball.
Mm.
Now, oh, by the way, on that, I forgot to mention it last week. I've got a lookalike for Ethan Wright,
Who's that then?
Ricky Ponting.
Ricky. Ponting.
Ethan Wright is young Ricky Ponting, no question. And the good thing about this is because he's American, he might not know who I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah.
Ex-Australian cricket
We'll,
captain.
we'll get we'll get what was the fielding coach who ran him out at the Old Trafford? What was I've forgotten his name now. The England substitute ran him out at Old Trafford in the
Oh, Gary
Ashes.
Pratt.
Gary
Gary Pratt.
Pratt. There we go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gary Pratt and Duncan Fletcher. Yeah, and he was giving it all this stuff on the way up. Well, yeah, he was a Durham lad. Yeah. He's from Crook in Durham. But yeah, so Ethan Wright is Ricky Ponting. No, I've been trying to place him for about 2 weeks. Um, but yeah, so and Leicester just did what they did. They didn't knock down, but then they didn't play particularly well offensively. They played better. They didn't knock down the shots they
Oh,
were
they missed
ordinarily
a
knocking down.
ton of open threes.
Yeah, they were in rhythm most of the game, and the most importantly, they were still getting those looks.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, the die was cast, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, it was only 35-40 4 minutes into the third quarter, but Hunter threes topped and tailed a 14-0 run to Leicester, and it was 35-54. And as you say, the threes that Leicester were getting, even though they were missing them through the game, they kept getting them, and then they started to make a few in the fourth quarter, and it was comfortable.
Yeah, they ended up with 40%, didn't they? 10 or
Yeah, yeah.
25. Yeah, and so you knew that it's, in Surrey, ultimately they're really struggling 6 to 10
Mm.
on I mean in this game Ray and James gave them virtually nothing, and it was a delicate Steele and Gooden who showed up.
And Teo.
And Teal, yeah, Teal was six. That's the first
Mm.
five. In
Yeah.
relation to the 6 to 10 mark, Teal was the first man off the bench. He gave him a bit of offense, but then they scored him and made threes on him at the other end as well. But at least he showed something in the third quarter.
Mm.
Oh, but I'm not never a fan of the flexing when you're down 20. I don't
Mm.
think that really accomplishes much. Um, but in that game, Teal. But outside of that, Chelavinskas is struggling at this point. Young guy, he's going to struggle. It's tough. You got to deal with it. Hunt isn't being as impactful as he was last year, certainly at this point. And they put and Brown, the American guy, played in Macedonia last year, again, not really having a noticeable impact on the game.
Mm.
Um, and then ended up with Parkinson in the game in the end, middle of the third quarter. And it's like, if all your pros, and I know why Parkinson's in the game, because Lloyd's looking at it and thinking, well, these guys aren't going to do it. I've got to give the young kid a chance.
Yeah, yeah.
But also, it's very much harder for the young kid to do it when he's sat there cold for an hour and a bit,
Mm.
to come in the middle of the third quarter and suddenly turn it around because it's not his job,
Mm.
And as a coach, on the other side, you're always looking for that moment when the opposition coach got fed up with the lack of performance out of the players who you kind of feared could beat you,
Mm.
and put on the ones that you didn't really think could.
Yeah.
Because he had nowhere else to go. And I thought that's what happened in this game.
Mm.
I'm not. I think it's a bit unfortunate on young Parkinson to turn up to get in the game 4 minutes to go in the third quarter because everybody else has failed.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's what happened. You're really hoping that you'll produce something, but it's tough.
Mm.
So they need an upgrade on their bench. They've got two imports who are giving them nothing off their bench. And the two young lads, obviously, and Andrew Lawrence is injured.
Mm.
So he needs to get back and need to spread some minutes out there. But I was disappointed with them in this game. I wouldn't say Leicester were there to be beaten, but I don't think they got Leicester's best shot, and
No.
Leicester won easy.
Yeah, yeah. Gooden
Oh,
was
sorry. The one
still.
other thing I would say, go on.
I was
Sorry.
just saying about to say Gooden was still outscoring the rest of his team at the start of the fourth quarter.
No, it can't happen. And he was shooting on a decent percentage. He wasn't
Yeah, yeah.
jacking. Um, that's the other thing I was going to say.
But he only scored 2 points in the second half.
Yeah, right. Wow, he still says it all.
Mm.
And then until Teo started scoring the ball, that was it, really, wasn't
Mm.
it?
Yeah,
The other thing is, Thompson is continually impressive. I really like Thompson.
yeah.
Um, I'd take him, I'm afraid, ahead of Moore
Mm.
7 days a week and twice on Sundays.
Mm.
Because I think he's less demonstrative, he's less spectacular, but he's in the right place.
Mm.
He can probably tighten it, he can probably work on his post moves a little bit. He's got this kind of funny kind of reach out hook, which doesn't look like the most reliable shot. But in relation to everything he gives you,
Mm.
and everything he gives the group, and he fills that middle, and he fills it kind of on the first actions, on the second actions, on the third actions. He rebounds the ball, he gets some second possessions. He doesn't over dribble. He kicks it out when he has to. He just strikes me as being a winning player.
Mm. Gooden, 22.6 rebounds, 4 assists. Nengby, 5 of 6 for 14 points. Adelican, 12. Jackson, 8 for 11 for 20 points and 6 assists. Hunter, 4 of 6 from 3-point range, 17 points and 6 assists. And Thompson, 12 points and 14 rebounds. You were close on their threes. They were 10 of 26 from three in the end.
My bad. I'm not going to talk about Jackson or Hunter because I think we know what Jackson is, and I'm pretty sure Hunter's going to be good. We'll find out how good over the next few weeks, but there's nothing more to say about them at the moment.
Let's come to Sunday, and the reason we're on a Monday because Manchester basketball 93, London Lions 99 in overtime, which put paid to me getting back in time to do this. Uh, this was a wild game. This was a wild
It was nuts, wasn't it?
game.
Just nuts. Tests for London, which they passed.
Mm,
That's probably the biggest thing. But it was intriguing how they passed it,
mm.
because they're a lot more like a normal UK team this year than they were last year or the
Yeah,
year
yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they needed their guys to make plays in this game. And ultimately, they needed Taylor and Brisket to combine for 60,
Mm,
basically, to get them home, which would indicate that, the perimeter scoring was such that their interior scoring perhaps wasn't quite as impressive, if I can put it that way, as it
mm.
would have been last year when they had all those guys, Nola Shenny and all those guys.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you have Manchester, who are basically just they're like the prize fighter, aren't they? The old prize fighter who is just going toe to toe until somebody falls down.
Mm,
You know, you get the impression that none of those guys at Manchester have any fear,
mm.
not even any appropriate fear.
No, no.
And that probably is somewhat inappropriate because they do
Yeah,
need
yeah,
appropriate fear.
yeah, yeah.
Similar, such, and I think that's probably indicated in the way that they defended Brisker.
They don't lack for confidence.
They don't lack the confidence. No. And that's important. You need confidence, you need self-belief. Because if you don't got that, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. But you also have to have the appropriate fear of who you're playing against
Yeah, yeah.
and dealing with that. And they didn't deal with either Taylor or Brisker in this game. They let
So the
Taylor get off
Yeah,
they
the
let Brisker
pattern
get the
of the
game.
game was really set out at the beginning. Giants scored 12 of the first 17. London scored 14 of the next 16, and it was basically a little bit of momentum here, a little bit of momentum there, a few big plays at this end, few big plays at that end, all the way through.
Yeah, and both teams aren't the finished article, and both teams have flaws. I mean, Jordan Taylor last year was something of an adornment for a
Mm.
superstar team.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
could just break him out when they needed. He'd make a big shot near the end of the game. He'd put it away. Veteran, savvy, great. He's played 15 minutes. He could do it in his sleep. Goes, gets his medal, winds up the opposition coach, and he's off. That was Jordan Taylor last year.
Mm.
This year, he's not going to be at 15 minutes.
No, he's not going to be 15 minutes.
He's going to be at 20. He's going to be 25 to 30 minutes at this
Yeah,
rate,
he
unless
is.
obviously if Flood comes in, maybe he plays a little bit less.
Mm.
But still, they need him.
Yeah, yeah.
They need him big time. And so how his body holds up is going to be massive for London
Mm.
because he's obviously his next EuroLeague point guard. He knows the game. He knows the talent. He knows the level. He knows when he needs to make plays. He knows how to make plays, and he's a winner. You don't get to the level he's got to without being a winner. So the question is, I think he's mid-30s. So is he going to hold up to the SLB season?
Mm.
Um, Brisker, well, we know he can play because he played, I think, France Pro A, didn't he?
Mm.
And so we know he can play. I don't think Manchester knew he could play.
No.
Um, I'm sorry, you can't be going, he's made four, you can't be going under screens or anything like that. And, he sent a message out to everybody in the league now that, you have to guard me. You have to guard me properly, and that might open things up for other people. Um, But overall, Manchester just gave them as good as they got.
Mm.
It's difficult to pick out any specific moment until you get right towards the end
Well,
because it was just
should we
backwards.
get to
Yeah,
the end? Yeah. So
why
it's
not?
2 minutes to go. It's tied at 80, 84, 84. Speaking of irrational confidence, 134 to go. Madu with a what I thought was the questionable shot in transition, but he knocked down the three, 84,
Yeah,
87.
yeah. he hasn't made many threes, Madhu, but he's a good size. He's
Mm.
athletic.
Yeah, yeah.
Could be a really high level player.
Mm.
He's not,
Other end of the floor, 118 to go. Brisker dancing, step back, cleanest swish you could see for 3 points, 87, 87.
yeah. At that point, I think if I'm Manchester, I'm kind of you're not shooting the ball.
Yeah,
You might not be touching the ball, to be
yeah.
honest. These are the players that make a difference. Who shoots the ball when it matters. Preferably not the guy who's absolutely incandescently hot.
Yeah. 104 to go. Mitchell, open three. Soko coming from the wing, well, coming to the wing from the middle. Diving out, blocks the shot, call for a foul. Three free throws. What did you make of it, Dave?
Well, the camera angle weren't great because we've got this silly habit, still got this silly habit of these directors who are going different camera angles while the ball's in play and going behind the basket, going on the sideline camera, which means suddenly you don't see everything. What I made of it was that we had some refs who basically had never seen anybody jump that high.
Mm,
And there was another call. I think there was a call on Moore on a block where Moore got a block from behind, which was literally an above the rim NBA play, and that was called as a foul. And I thought this one was just like you can't have done that legally, therefore, because I've never seen
mm,
that doesn't happen legally in the Scottish leagues that I've been refereeing in.
mm,
So therefore, my first instinct is that's a foul. That was the impression I got. I mean, it was a bad angle on the TV. You were in the building,
mm,
but my view was it was a hell of a play by Soko.
mm,
And I think you got to be very careful when, in not ruling out good proper 3 point defense. That's as much of a play as anybody who makes a shot or dunks a ball.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, and I don't know. I like to see, I'd like to see as a whole a little bit more contact allowed now in the league. I think
Mm,
at times we have so many different refs and they're all trying to get that kind of wind in the league and try and figure things out that they do that contact is overcalled,
mm.
particularly on kind
Slightly
of
up on fouls this year.
yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And given that I watched Jordan Johnson and Ricky McGill and Larry Austin last year, it was just a foul fest,
Yeah,
constant
yeah.
garden.
Mm,
Um, but I just think, there was, I see the block on that. I thought it was I thought Soko took it very well. I'd have been furious. But what did you think? I mean, you were there.
I don't think you saw all of his reaction.
Yeah, all right,
He
fair
was
enough.
not overly impressed, I think it's fair to say. But he stayed the right side of the line. From where Jason and I sat, it looked like a block. But
Yeah.
as you say, I watched
I
it
mean,
back
the thing
again.
is,
It's
on
hard
stuff
to
like
tell.
that, stuff like that, you can find a reason to call a foul.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maybe he's jumped across his line. Maybe his foot's landed towards his area. Okay, but at some point you've got to allow the defense to make a play.
Mm,
And as I say, it was the same with Moore blocking that ball from behind. If a guy is going above the rim to block a ball from behind and pin it on the glass, right? And there's going to be a degree of contact.
mm,
Provided he's not swiping down and hitting people's arms and stuff like that. Um, then it's fine by me. I thought they're going to have to get. These are different players. These players are not going to be easy to ref this year, and it's going to be very difficult for some of the younger refs who are doing a game every 2 or 3 weeks to walk into Manchester v Cheshire.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not going to be easy at all because, as I say, the pathway for our referees is through NBL,
Mm,
Scottish Basketball League, whatever. And women's basketball, even wheelchair basketball, but basically none of them do you see anything like this.
mm,
It's a totally different level of physicality. Now, it doesn't mean the decision-making process changes because decision-making process is the same, and the question of judgment remains the same. It's all a question what you judge, what's a foul, and what's not. But you have to be ready for it, you know. And so yeah, I may be wrong. Maybe it was a perfectly good call, but I thought it was a bit unfortunate.
So Mitchell makes all three free throws. That puts Manchester. That makes it. I've got 87-90. It must be ninety
Yeah,
eighty seven, mustn't
that's
it?
right.
So Brisker to the rim. He was blocked by Mitchell. Soko with the offensive rebound. Rye misses a three in the corner on the 24-second uh, buzzer. 38 seconds or so remaining. So in that sort of foul, don't foul hinterland. London had two fouls to give anyway. Taylor
Mm.
almost stole it, and then interested to get your thoughts on this one. I thought Adebayo had wrapped him up, but he got called for a foul. It was
And this
I
is what
thought.
I'm talking about physicality again. I agree with you 100%. I
Mm,
mean, I looked at what did Adebayo do wrong?
mm,
You know, he's got two hands across the ball. Now,
mm,
if he's put two, now if he's knocked the guy's arm to get his two hands on the ball, or if he's reached through underneath and knocked him off balance, then it's a foul.
mm,
But what I saw was whichever Manchester player had the ball, turned off the pressure, turned into Adebayo. Adebayo clamps the ball.
mm,
And, you know, as I say, you can find a foul in there if you want.
mm,
You can be looking for a foul in there if you want. But you've got to kind of, ref the defensive player. You've got to ref what does the defensive player do,
mm,
and what did he do wrong? You're not refing the offensive player. You're not dealing with the fact that it's a foul because I'm expecting it to be a foul.
mm,
And my impression was exactly the same as yours. And I looked at Adebayo's face, and actually watched it back, and it's a good angle, and you just don't see any illegal contact on it.
mm,
And as I say, it's almost instinctive. Your adrenaline is flowing. There's a lot of pressure on it. You're expecting them to foul. It's an easy call because who's going to
mm.
complain if you call a foul?
Yeah.
I hope, yeah, wasn't sure he had a technical by then, didn't he?
Yes, he had. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, he
yeah,
got
yeah,
one early. Yeah, I think
yeah,
he's,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So they didn't lose anything in terms of time, London, in that one because there was 29.2 seconds left and 15 on the shot clock, so it doesn't reset at
yeah.
that point. Obviously, if it had been a hell ball, it would have been possession error to London.
Mm.
So inbound the ball, Adebayo gets his hands on the pass again, knocks it out of bounds, 27.6 seconds to go. Then a slightly risky pass, so they more at the halfway line. Soko
Mhm.
uses the last foul that they have to give. The game clock is down to 25 by this point, so they did lose 3 seconds in terms of the shot clock because it was at 11, went back to 14. So now there's an 11-second difference between the two clocks. And again, you're in that question of do we foul them to give us enough time, or do we play defense and believe we have enough time to go the other way? 11
Oh, yeah,
seconds.
they defense. I mean, I'm surprised. So I'm surprised they committed those fouls at that point. To be honest, I mean,
Yeah,
Adebayo did try to. I'm
yeah,
surprised Soko did. I mean, you're
yeah.
14. You got a 15-second and 13-second differential.
Mm.
They're going to get the ball back. You're going to have to defend them. Why waste your foul there?
Well, any time they lost was made up by Mitchell going a little early. He thought he had a mismatch. He ends up shooting with about 6 or 7 seconds still on the shot clock. Misses. Rebound between Ashton Langford and Soko. Jump ball is called this time, so therefore London
Mhm.
get possession of the ball with 13.6 seconds to go.
Yeah, I think that was a slightly early call as well, wasn't it? I
Mm,
think Soko had that ball, didn't he?
he did,
From
yeah.
memory, Soko
I
ripped
think
it
he was
away.
asking for a foul as well in there as
Was
well.
he? Well,
And obviously, I think Ashton Langford was on four at that time as well.
yeah,
So
it helps. Of course, and it helps London because it means that they get a timeout, don't they?
mm. So they call a timeout, advance the ball. Excellent play, really. Taylor towards the basket. Brisker on the opposite side runs his man into Soko. It gets open in the corner. 5.2 seconds to go. Knocks it down. Tied at 90.
It's a play which our old friend Chris Finch introduced.
Mm,
It's called the hammer play, and he used to introduce it and run it for Nate Ranking
mm,
time after time, and he ran it for GB as well when he was at GB. And it's designed specifically for that purpose to
mm,
get a three for that man in the corner. That's what if Nurse uses it in the NBA even as recently as last year. And basically everything that's going on with the basketball with Taylor with the penetration
mm,
is misdirection.
mm,
Taylor is not attacking the score. It is misdirection. And it works because as Taylor comes around that screen at the top to his right, Bozic knows that the Manchester defender is not going to go under that screen. He's going to trail him. He's going to go
mm,
behind that screen because he doesn't want to give up a three to Taylor. So because of that, Taylor's got a lane to attack the rim. And then every basketball player's DNA at that point is to come and defend the basket.
or at least look that way.
Or at least look that way. You don't, which was Mitchell. Mitchell took one
Mm,
step across. Now it's not Mitchell's man because on the other side, whilst all this is going on, and it's all misdirection, Soko is lining up a screen on Brisker's man, who I think was Nick Lewis. and absolutely nails it. So Briscoe is moving to
I
that
think,
corner.
was it not? Oh no, Ashton Langford would have been on Taylor, wouldn't he? So yeah, maybe it
Yes,
was.
I think it was Lewis. So Briscoe starts his move into the corner just as Taylor turns the corner.
Mm,
Soko is there, sets a great screen on Lewis. Lewis makes the mistake of being reactive instead of proactive, so he's not realizing it's coming. By the time it's come, it's too late because the ball is on a plate for Briscoe,
mm.
and it's the best 3-point shot you can get, which is the corner three where the ball's coming straight at you. So you can set your feet whilst it's coming at
For the
you
guy who's already made 8.
with a guy who's already made eight.
Mm,
So yeah, it was a great play. It wasn't overly well defended, um, but it had to be executed properly.
mm,
Now, against that, of course, you know, when that ball goes to the other side, I'm not letting Briscoe anywhere near a screen. You got how we going. You've got to see something like that coming if you can, and they didn't.
no,
It's an
no,
example of playing the game with your brain instead of your body.
yeah. Sorry, that was his 8th. He'd already made 7.
Yeah.
Timeout, advanced the ball, 5.2 seconds to go. London lost Mitchell on a switch. It's another great outcome for the shooting team. Mitchell up top, good look, missed it.
Yeah, make or miss game, innit?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
for all that, London and Manchester defense wasn't great on
Mm,
the previous possession. London, Delay basically lost him. I think it was Delay. So I don't think he played. I don't think he was in the game in overtime. I think Delay lost Mitchell, and yeah, Mitchell won that one back.
In overtime, despite missing free throws, London missed a load of free throws late in the fourth quarter and in overtime. They actually scored the first 7 points, including Briscoe's ninth three of the game. Taylor hit a big one as well, and they were 90-97 up, and that was basically it.
Yeah, Manchester's kind of like a pecking order hurt them at that point. You didn't know who it was going to be.
Mm,
Mitchell's probably still frustrated that he's missed that last shot. So where do they go next? Who's it going to be? Who's going to create a shot? Who's going to be the guy who takes over? None of them really did. So
mm,
they're still a young team in that way. So it was London's defense and Manchester's kind of misfiring offense, which meant that London won it quite comfortably going away.
mm,
Um, I'm impressed with London. I still think there's flaws, and I think they're eminently beatable. I think everybody's eminently beatable though. But I like the physicality, and whilst they've got Taylor running the show, yeah, Briscoe made 9 threes, and Briscoe's going to have games like that.
mm,
And you have to live with that. But whilst they've got Taylor running the show, then I think they're going to be a really tough team.
mm. Mitchell, 25 points, although 4 of 13 from 3-point range. Moore, 15 points, 13 rebounds, 6 of 13 shooting, though. KO, 14 points and 12 rebounds. Briscoe, we mentioned it, 9 of 13 for 3, 36 points, his career high. Taylor's best score in this country, 23 points, and Rye, 13 points and 11. London was 16 of 33 from 3, bearing in mind they were 33 of 144 coming into this game.
Yeah, well, let's see, some guys shooting 9 of 13 helps.
Yeah.
But I don't think Manchester respect. I don't think Manchester had the fear of them. I don't think they respected them on the perimeter. I don't think Manchester are going to be as good as their scouting report defense is willing to commit to.
Mm.
I will say a point for Buzzage. Rye got 2 early fouls, but still managed to play 12 minutes in the first half.
Yeah, yeah,
And my pet
yeah,
peeve about
yeah.
people getting 2 fouls and then getting benched into the beginning of the third quarter. Trust your players and you get minutes out of them.
Did he even get a third foul? I don't
I
think
don't know
he
if he
even
did,
got a
but there's
third
no
foul.
point having
Yeah,
superstars on the
yeah,
bench on the
yeah,
basis
yeah,
that they make
yeah.
foul out. Or certainly not in the first quarter.
Mm,
So yeah, so I like that. And there's little tweaks that do make a difference in games.
mm.
It might not, it could have worked against them, of course.
Well, as you say, I think it was 2.5 minutes into the game. He had 2 fouls. He sat him down immediately, but he still found another 9.5 minutes
Mm. Yeah.
despite that.
And they haven't really got another Rye. They've got,
No.
Andy and Adebayo are their wings. And they've got bigs and they've got guards, but so he's a pretty pivotal piece for them.
Let's go to East Kilbride, Caledonia Gladiators, 71, Newcastle Eagles, 94. No DeBose or Ali Hodgic for Caledonia. Obviously, Defoe and Neighbour were still out. 6 minutes into the first quarter, Ward Hibbert down the lane looked like a twisted ankle. He didn't return, so he was out as well for basically the whole game.
Yeah.
Despite
Uh,
that, Eagles with a 10-0 run and led 7-17.
yeah, it's always nice. It's so nice to get back to beating the Ducks every
Mhm.
3 weeks.
Good,
Sorry,
you get to
sorry,
play them
sorry.
again in
And
the cup
yeah,
now.
yeah, in 2 weeks' time in the league
Mm,
in Caledonia.
mm,
I think Caledonia's next home game is against Newcastle. So
mm,
yeah, well done those who put that schedule together.
mm,
Um, it's a similar story, from Newcastle's perspective. They were probably the most cohesive they had been all actually offensively all season. Um, Walt Hibbert started off like a house on fire,
mm,
9 points in 4.5 minutes. And, it's a kind of a really tough blow for them to lose him
mm,
if he's out for any period of time, because the way he's played this year is, he's putting himself in the category of, top British player and top British players in the league.
mm,
He's in that category. Um, and he started off this game that way, having sat out Friday night,
mm.
probably to protect him and just not to make sure his load is too great. Um, but Caledonia, just, 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 I wouldn't say they flattered to deceive, because they didn't flatter.
Mm,
They just deceived. It was a very, very spiritless, I
mm,
thought, performance. There was obviously they don't have Ali Hodzic, and Dubose is a major shot creator. We've talked about that before,
mm.
but he basically hasn't started this season as of yet. This season has not
No.
started, and I think the word was he's out for personal reasons, so whatever they are, I hope they're sorted out. But
Mm,
they need him. Um, their their lineup starting with Hughes. They who it was a difficult guy to play in SPL, particularly against smaller players.
mm,
And he's doing okay, but it makes you into a certain type of team, because every team's going to have a point guard or a two guard, and they're all about the same in reality.
mm,
But then the difference in team styles depends on the difference in the styles of their bigs. Yeah. So Cheshire's bigs are 6'7" and are shooting.
mm,
Newcastle's kind of, with a kind of hybrid with Del Pesh as a big guy in the middle, but then they've got Long at the moment, who's basically more of a shooter. And you can go through all the teams as to how they play.
mm.
Basically, the bigger your big guy is, the more that you're required to play to kind of his speed. And so they're very predictable, I thought, Caledonia, and with their offense. And outside of Pat Whelan making a few shots in the first half,
Yeah.
um, you didn't get the impression that that they had much going for them.
No, I got exactly the same thing here. Despite a couple of shots from Whelan, Eagles stayed in front and really killed the game, actually, with a 17-5 run just before halftime. It's 27-45.
Yeah, and
And the 27 is the real problem.
the 27 is a real thing. And I mean, there's a number of reasons for that. First, the Eagles are doing Spencer's doing a really good job of running that team,
Mm,
because they're not expecting, he's not forcing anything, he's not playing with any form of ego, he's not shooting the ball that much. He could probably do actually even possibly even a little bit more. But he's running the stuff that they want, that the coach wants them to run. And the advantage of that is that even when they don't score, they're not turning the ball over much.
mm,
So and they're getting back on defense. So they're not giving away any cheap points certainly against Caledonia, but not the fastest team. But by doing that, you're controlling. It's a literal example of controlling the tempo of the game. Against on top of that, they got good minutes out of Long, who had 15 points in 22 minutes and made some threes. And in this game, the rest of them then kind of score in bunches. So you might look up when Nate's got 12 points and you don't know how. Then Alan Aikens will make 3 shots in a row, and then in this game, Okoro became a facilitator
mm.
and passed the ball really well. So Caledonia relying on Kyle making shots, which he did. But outside of that, there just wasn't much there. Prince On was over 2 in 19 minutes, gave him nothing. Fraser Malcolm gave him nothing, offensively. And somewhere along the line, it's a bit like, sorry, someone's got to step up and score the ball.
Yeah. And they didn't really.
No,
Whelan, 15 points, Barnes, 13 points, Jimenez, 12 points, Alan Aikens, 20 points, 9 of 11.
yeah,
17 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists for Knight, and Long, 6 of 8, shooting 15 points. Eagles, 61% field goal shooting.
what I will say is that despite all of those numbers you put out there, the best player was Okaru
Mm.
because Okaru defended Whelan in the second half better than I think I've seen anybody defend Whelan. I don't know if Whelan's dispirited, hurt, or whatever, but if you look at the way Newcastle, and it helps because they basically ignored Frank Bentley the whole game. So if Frank Bentley is playing, they've got Frank Bentley's man stood in the middle of the paint to make an extra body for Whelan to go through in the challenging for Bentley to make a shot and eventually made one at the end of the third quarter. But Okoro's, if you look at his positional defense and his athleticism on Whelan in the second half, that was his best I've seen anybody defend Whelan in 5 years. He even blocked one of his shots straight up, which is very, very rare. And on top of that, the thing with Okoro is I think he's probably Newcastle's best player, the most rounded player. Yeah, he's coming off the bench, not a word of complaint.
Mm.
In this game, I think he only shot the ball 5 or 6 times, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 charges, including one on Theo Hughes, knocking him
Mm.
over, standing in front of the 7-foot guy, and numerous defensive pressures and reaches and steals and that type of stuff while being solid. And if your best player, and arguably your best player, is leading in that way, is taking charges, coming off the bench, isn't whinging, isn't complaining, and is making passes, 8 assists in this game, he's not the point guard. He's making passes to the right place to get others involved. That's the type of thing that really takes a team a long way.
Mm.
And that's actually one of the positive things out of Newcastle at the moment is that they've got that kind of degree of they've got a stoicism about them.
Mm.
Just kind of kind of that thousand, Alan Aikens and Okoro and even Knight at times have that kind of 1,000-yard stare.
Mm.
You can see next play, next play, next play. That's what they're into. And in this game, one of the reasons they beat Caledonia was because they beat them down the floor probably about 6 or 7 times and probably scored 14 points of Caledonia's defense, and even of Caledonia makes. And it was pretty encouraging now against that. Newcastle have beaten Caledonia 3 times now, just like Leicester beaten Surrey 3 times. Does that mean Newcastle are good and Leicester are good? Or does it mean Caledonia are bad and Surrey are bad? We'll not know until we see the games against London and Bristol and all that stuff, But for Caledonia coming off an unbelievable result on Wednesday, and we should give
Yeah,
them some
yeah,
props.
yeah. We should. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Incredible
They beat
comeback.
they beat Ludwigsburg, the team that beat them by 30. Pat went off at 25 points, 4-point play, but they beat a German BBL team.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
From
and
19
then
down as well.
from 19 down, and that gives it that's a bit of soft power. We don't see it in this country,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
other countries will be looking at that thinking, hang on,
yeah,
how is this? This must be a superstar team. Then they look and they've hardly won a game in our league and they got beat by
yeah,
20 once. So it's elevating the league, the standard of the league and the views of other people, and that can only be good
yeah,
that
yeah.
they did that. But to come out as flat as they did, even though they didn't have DeBose, and I appreciate DeBose is a big piece for them, to come out as flat as they did,
Mm.
difficult to accept, really. I mean, Newcastle still got the point guard that they're bedding in. They lost Ward Hibbert 5 minutes in the game.
Mm.
They're short on bigs. They got a great game out of Delpesh, to be fair. A great game out of Delpesh. But even so, they're there to be beat.
Mm.
And they're certainly not there to collapse to, which is what I thought Caledonia did.
Let's go to the final game then. Sheffield Sharks 102, Bristol Flyers 90. Clay was in for this game. Groves was back. Ocherobia this time was out. Anderson obviously out after that injury. Johnson was out for Bristol. Smith was back, but he only played a couple of minutes. I feel like I've spent more time talking about the injuries here than we're going to talk about the
Yeah.
game. Even stories. Actually, Bristol who had the first run of this game. Tennyson with three pointers in a 13-2 spell to lead 16-27.
I actually thought you've talked about the injuries. I think really the injuries told the story of this game. Because the injuries that Sheffield had in Jamal Anderson and Ocherobia, they left Sheffield with only one way to play
Mm.
because Clay was new, so they didn't know what they were going to get from him, which is
Mm.
fast.
Mm.
They have to play. They got the two guards, Nixon and Chapman. They got Glasgow, another guard coming off the bench. Then they've got a shooter in Jeffries, who's knocked down shooter. Then they've got Ratinho, who's up and down the court. Then they've got Matthews as another wing,
Mm,
and then Groves, who is basically a big guy, who's basically a wing as well, who wants
mm,
to get up that court. Right? They're just flying. All right. Um, Now, they're not necessarily better without Jamel. I'm not saying they're better without Jamel and Mike Ocherobia, but it means they play a different way. It's a
mm.
little bit what I was saying about Theo Hughes. Mike Ocherobia is on the court. You're having to play at the speed of Mike Ocherobia
Yeah, yeah.
because he has to get up and down. Now, maybe they get him down quickly, but there are times when he's not because he's 6'9" and he's a big bloke. So, so because of that, Sheffield were able to play really quick. Bristol have been doing that all season. They're kind of Cheshire light, okay? But the difference for Bristol was that they were doing that without their captain.
Mm,
It struck me. It was like, I don't know if you remember. You don't know what that's called, but where they have the team cycling in the Olympics around the track, and they have like six cyclists in a row, and they
yeah,
all
yeah,
roll
yeah.
behind each other, and then one
Yeah, yeah.
peels off
One peels
every
off
so
again.
often, and
Yeah,
one
yeah,
peels
yeah,
off.
yeah.
It was like it was like that. This game was like that, except Sheffield had more cyclists than
Mm,
Bristol because Keady Johnson wasn't there,
yeah.
right? So you're playing that way, but you only got 13 minutes at your point guard, Corey Samuels. Which means now 26 minutes, you're kind of playing without a point guard and you're
Mm.
having to fit around that. And also you're playing really fast. So there's lots of shots going up and down. And the scoring race
Yeah, home
generally
team.
stuck up
Uh,
to them.
yeah, Matthews continued his good recent scoring form, actually. 16-3 reply in about 4 or 5 minutes around the first quarter break to 32-30, Sheffield in the lead. And then Chapman and Matthews pushed it to 12 just before halftime. Early third quarter, it went to 66-47, and I figured I'd seen enough of that game
Yeah, I think you're right.
last
And that's
night.
what, well,
So,
I mean, Tennyson made a ton of shots and
yeah.
Tennyson's a really, really good shot maker. But sometimes the difficulty with a team when they get into that kind of mindset of, we're going to outscore you, we're going to run up and down, is that you do lose track of your defense.
Mm,
And I think this game exposed Bristol a little bit for that. I don't think their defense was but Robinson's good. I like Robinson's defense. He's there. He's 6'6", he competes, he contests. But I thought they were very, very loose on the perimeter.
mm,
I don't think they took it upon themselves to guard anybody really one-on-one. Samuel's tried, but he only plays 13 minutes, so it's tough
mm,
to hold that on him. And against Sheffield, first thing you have to do is guard Chapman, because
mm.
Chapman had 24 points in this game. He had 19 shots, he had 9 assists. So he's used basically 30 possessions, two turnovers, I think. 30 possessions he's used where he's finished with a shot or an assist or a turnover. It's probably only 90 possessions in the game.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a third of the possessions Chapman has used. So you better be able to guard him.
Mm,
And you better take the challenge on. And I think the one guy they've got who is probably capable of guarding him is Keely Johnson.
mm,
Because Sherfield's a bit bigger. Lewis obviously too big. Tennyson is kind of wiry, but he's a scorer as opposed to a kind of get down into a stance and defend guy. And they just never set the tone for that. And as I say, Samuel started. You made a couple of players early on, didn't play that much afterwards. But you're not going to get 20 out of Corey Samuels.
mm.
So can you play Corey Samuels for his defense in a scoring race game? Difficult when you've gone behind.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So it's hard to put him back, and then you're constantly chasing, chasing the dragon. Is that a phrase? I don't know where it's come from.
It
Uh,
is, but I don't think we're going to get. Don't Google that, kids. Don't Google that. Goes back to Grange Hill, I think, is where you pulled that
okay,
one
whatever.
from.
Um,
Samo chased the dragon.
well, that's what it felt like that, and Sheffield just got really, really comfortable. And Sheffield have, I mean, they have some scores. Matthews is a scorer. You have to be a guarding one-on-one because he's a scorer. Groves again, he can score. They can all score, and yeah, Bristol they need Keady Johnson, no question. But they need a little reset, I think,
Mm,
because they're going to lose a lot of games on the road if they don't tighten up their defense to a
mm,
certain if they play at the speed of the opposition. Sheffield's probably the wrong team with the wrong personnel at that time
mm,
because, as I say, without Jamel and without Michael Troby, who are stabilizers as opposed to accelerators,
mm,
um, Sheffield got Bristol at the right time and Bristol got Sheffield at the wrong time.
mm.
Um, I don't think Sheffield could play like that against London or probably against Leicester. I think they would struggle. But against Bristol, yeah, the way Bristol were, they were kind of set up for them.
Mm,
So, Bristol are off again. I think they're off in Europe this week as well. So, Caledonia is off to play France Pro A team. Good luck to them.
mm,
And so these games are coming thick and fast for these teams. I think Newcastle got a game tomorrow night actually against Sam Van Oostrum and Donna Groningen.
mm. Yeah,
One of the Van Oostrum British Dutch brothers.
mm,
So there's plenty of games, but overall, good weekend for London.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Good weekend for London.
I'll just give the scores on this one. Chapman 24 and 9, you mentioned. Matthews 9 of 11 for 21 points. Clay had 14 points, 11 rebounds. Groves had 14 points, 58% from the floor and 10 of 22 from three. Tennyson.
Would it be wrong to say that Clay's defense looked a bit porous?
I'm not going. We're not having this all year. We're not having. I'm not. Otherwise, I'm bringing back. I'm
I mean,
bringing
thinking these as I mean,
bringing
that's
back
how I'm thinking
meatloaf.
this as I'm talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Tennyson 26, 10 of 14. Sheffield 20 points and 6 assists against Sheffield. And Robinson 6 of 9 for 14 points. Too early for the league table, so I didn't even look. That'll do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking about, was it a clay court? Sorry.
We'll be on Monday next week as well, I'm afraid, folks, as Sheffield are going to
I
Cheshire.
can't help your
Mm,
globe-trotting.
I know.
It's just you're almost back to being the. Is it better being back in the gym as opposed to
It
being in
is,
the.
yeah. You feel
You
the
can talk now.
atmosphere,
You
yeah.
can be honest now.
No, you feel there are pros and cons to both of them, and as I said last year, I could totally understand, given what they were trying to achieve, why you would do that centrally. And if you were asking me to achieve the things they were trying to achieve last year, I would have done that exactly the same. But as a commentator, it's obviously much better to be 2 feet from the action because you get the sense of it and the feel of it and you the atmosphere of it as well.
And please tell me that when you played with Jason, your entire game just consisted of passing him the ball.
Well, yeah, basically yeah.
Yeah,
I wasn't. I was the non-shooter. That's fair to say.
you
Yeah,
were.
I had other roles on the team that didn't involve shooting the basketball.
Yeah, I
Whereas
know what that meant.
Jason's sole role was
To
shoot the three.
shoot the
Jason.
basketball.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, well, good. Provided you played up to that role
yeah,
and
yeah.
you
It was
accepted
the only
your
way I got minutes. I only got
exactly your
minutes because I knew the plays and I played defense and I tried to rebound, and that
yeah,
was
no,
the
yeah, that's your buy on your fuck when
yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Know
Understand you
your role.
and fight through them. Yeah. Oh no, it's interesting. That was cool. That was nice. It was good to hear from you too. It was nice. I like listening to Jason. I do like listening to him. He knows his stuff. Um, yeah, cool. Yeah, so yeah. Up the Geordies.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And on
I,
that
I,
on that parochial bombshell, we will call it a night. We'll be back
Actually, I'll just do
next.
it. Actually, before we go, I'll just do a
Yeah.
little idea.
He's waving for the people
He's waving to them.
listening on the
He's
podcast.
waving them off. Yeah,
We'll be
that's how
back
we're
next
doing
week.
ourselves from Geordies. Yeah.
See you later. Goodbye.
Goodbye.